Right now, there is a war happening on the other side of the world that most Americans think has nothing to do with them. They are wrong. What is happening between the United States, Israel, and Iran is not just a military conflict. It is a financial event that is already reaching into your wallet. And if this war continues for another few months, the damage to everyday American finances could be unlike anything we have seen since the 2008 financial crisis. Today, we are breaking down exactly what is happening, why it matters to your money, and what you can do right now to protect yourself. Number 1, what is actually happening and why it matters. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched military strikes on Iran in an operation called Operation Epic Fury. Within hours of those first strikes, something happened on the other side of the world that set off a chain reaction, now working its way directly into your daily life. Iran controls access to a narrow strip of water called the Strait of Hormuz. This waterway sits between Iran and Oman, and at its narrowest point, it is only 21 nautical miles wide. That does not sound like much. But that narrow strip of water is the single most important choke point in the entire global energy system. More than 20 million barrels of oil transit through the strait every single day. That is 1/5 of global petroleum consumption and 1/4 of all oil traded by sea. When the war began, Iran effectively closed that choke point. Tanker traffic collapsed. Iranian strikes on oil infrastructure resulted in shutdowns of facilities across the region. Gulf producers began cutting output as storage capacity ran out. The International Energy Agency called it the greatest global energy security challenge in history. Flows through the strait dropped from 20 million barrels per day to almost nothing, with Gulf production cuts of at least 10 million barrels per day following shortly after. That is not a disruption. That is a crisis. And it is one that every American is going to feel, whether they follow international news or not. Number 2, what this is doing to oil prices right now. Here is where your money comes in. Brent crude oil prices jumped about 15% in the opening days of the conflict, then surged to $120 a barrel as it deepened. For the first time since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, oil crossed $100 per barrel. To understand why that number matters to you personally, you need to understand one simple fact about oil. Oil is not just fuel. It is a raw material for thousands of products. From the plastic in your phone case, to the fertilizer that grows your food, to the packaging on every item in your grocery store. When oil prices surge, the cost of everything surges with it. In just the first week after the strikes on Iran, the average price of gasoline in the United States increased 48 cents per gallon. That happened in 1 week. And analysts are warning this is just the beginning. U.S. government officials and Wall Street analysts are now considering the prospect that oil prices might surge to an unprecedented $200 per barrel if the strait remains closed and the conflict continues to escalate. Oxford Economics ran a simulation showing that if global oil prices averaged around $140 per barrel for just 2 months, it would be enough to push parts of the global economy into a mild recession. We are already approaching that number. Number 3, how this is hitting your wallet right now. Let us get specific about what this actually means for your money on a day-to-day basis. At the gas pump, nearly half the cost of every gallon of gasoline is determined by the price of crude oil. When crude surges, the pump follows within days. If you drive to work, run errands, or fill up a tank of any kind, you are already paying more and will continue to pay more for as long as this conflict continues. At the grocery store, this is the impact most Americans are not thinking about yet, but will be feeling very soon. Fertilizer prices are rising because oil is a key ingredient in their production. Transportation costs for moving food from farms to stores are rising. Farmers and governments are rushing to secure critical crop nutrients ahead of spring planting as the war drives up prices and squeezes supply. Every one of those rising costs gets passed directly to you at the checkout line. On your utility bills, natural gas prices have surged alongside oil. The outlook that had predicted declining prices as more U.S. and Qatari liquefied natural gas plants came online has been completely upended. Some analysts now say the world has moved from the possibility of a surplus to a deficit later this year. Higher natural gas prices mean higher electricity bills, higher heating costs, and higher costs for any business that depends on energy to operate. In your investment portfolio, the S&P 500 fell 3.4% in a single week as markets reacted to the ongoing uncertainty. If you have a 401k or a Roth IRA invested in index funds, which most Americans do, you have already felt this in your balance. Bloomberg Economics puts U.S. inflation for March 2026 at 3.4% year-on-year, up from 2.4% in February, with rising fuel prices as the main driver. Higher inflation means your dollars buy less of everything. It means the Federal Reserve may keep interest rates higher for longer, and it means the raises most Americans receive will not keep pace with what things actually cost. Number 4. How long will this last, and how bad could it get? The honest answer is nobody knows for certain. What we do know is this. Unlike the Russia-Ukraine war, which showed that the global energy system could absorb price shocks through rerouting and substitution, the 2026 Iran war has exposed a fundamental vulnerability. The physical concentration of oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz cannot be compensated for when a closure occurs. There is simply no easy detour. The tools that worked in 2022 do not work here. Geopolitical analysts estimate that the world has already lost 4.5 to 5 million barrels per day of oil supply, about 5% of global output. But that number is expected to double by mid-April, making this the largest loss of crude supply in recorded history. The best-case scenario is a negotiated resolution that reopens the strait quickly. Oil prices fall back and economic damage is contained. The worst-case scenario is a prolonged conflict where the strait remains closed for months. At that point, we are talking $5 gasoline nationally, dramatically higher grocery bills, surging utility costs, and sustained stock market pressure that could erase years of retirement savings gains for millions of Americans. Number 5. What you should do right now to protect your money. You cannot control what happens in the Strait of Hormuz, but you can control how prepared you are for the financial consequences. Here is exactly what to do right now. If inflation is rising and your expenses are going up, you need more cash on hand than you did 6 months ago. Aim for 3 to 6 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account. This is your buffer against rising costs at the pump, the grocery store, and on your utility bills. Do not panic, sell your investments. Market drops tied to geopolitical crises are historically temporary. If you sell your 401k or Roth IRA holdings in a panic, you lock in your losses permanently. Stay the course. Keep contributing. The investors who come out ahead after crises are the ones who stayed calm and let compounding do its work. Review your variable expenses now. Gas and groceries are going up and you cannot control that. But you can identify other areas where you can temporarily cut spending to offset the rising costs. Subscriptions, dining out, and discretionary purchases are the first places to look. Consider energy stocks as a hedge. Oil company stocks and energy sector ETFs tend to rise when oil prices rise. A small allocation to energy sector investments can partially offset the higher costs you are paying as a consumer. This is not financial advice. Speak to a qualified advisor before making any investment decisions. Lock in fixed-rate agreements where possible. If your electricity provider offers fixed-rate plans, now is the time to lock in before prices rise further. Same with any variable-rate debt. Rising inflation often brings rising interest rates, which means rising payments on variable-rate loans and credit cards. The Iran conflict is not just a news story. It is a financial event that is already affecting your daily life and has the potential to reshape the American economy for months to come. The best thing you can do right now is stay informed, stay calm, and take the practical steps to make sure your financial foundation is strong enough to weather whatever comes next. Have you already noticed higher gas prices or grocery bills since the Iran conflict began? And what is the one expense hitting your wallet the hardest right now? If this video helped you understand what is happening to your money, hit that like button. It helps Kraftwise reach more everyday Americans who deserve to understand the financial forces shaping their lives. Subscribe for a new money video every single week and stay ahead of whatever the economy throws at you next.